Many thanks for staying with us right here on KBC Channel 1. You're still watching Good Morning Kenya. My name is Migwi. Now, let's talk about matters that regard SMEs and their future and how they can survive the high costs and competing within the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And, SMEs account for over 90% of all businesses within the country, and also meaning that they employ a big number of Kenyans. But within that ecosystem, there are challenges that abound. We are talking about higher taxes, rising financial cost, rising expensive electricity, and so on. But on the other hand, the African Continental Free Trade Area opens a market of about 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP going up to more than $3 trillion US. And this means there are unprecedented opportunities within that ecosystem. But now the question here is, can these SMEs become competitive businesses globally, even as they thrive within the AfCFTA? That is a conversation we are having with Cyprian Ongeri, who is the lead consultant, GFC Africa. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How about you?
I am great.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
Karibu sana.
Yeah.
So let's get into the conversation, and we have to start with understanding the current realities in as far as SMEs is concerned. Latest data shows that small businesses account for an overwhelming majority of enterprises in Kenya, employing millions of Kenyans to that effect. Yeah. But when you look at Kenyan SMEs, what are they facing? Is it a competitiveness crisis or unfavorable business environment?
I think we can look at it from different angles. SMEs are facing various issues. Taxation is huge. Yeah. The cost of energy is huge. Competitiveness is huge. They are lacking, some of them, the managerial skills to be able to, manage their affairs, run their businesses in the right way. You realize also sometimes even compliance issues. You saw KRA coming up with a lot of changes on the Tax Act. Those are changes that actually will influence the amount of money they may need to to pay in terms of now getting the compliance. For a regular SME, they may not understand, for example, if you talk about KRA says we need you to distribute at least 60% of your earnings for that particular year, or we are going to assume it's revenue and we are going to tax it. Like a regular SME, we are talking about the mama mboga, mama and pop shops. We are talking about does that guy really understand what is deemed dividend? That means that they have to now go ahead and invest in hiring somebody to assist in terms of compliance. That's an extra cost that is going to hit on their balance sheet. SMEs do not even understand, some of them, they don't even understand that you need to have your books in order for you to even understand, are you even making a profit or you're just making cash flow and using that cash flow to go out and, assume you're making money, Yes. Sometimes you could be having cash flow coming in, but then knowing whether you are making a profit is completely different. You must do your balance sheet, you must do your income statement, get to understand your cash flow, statement of cash flow, see how you are able to move your businesses. So there is a lot of changes they are going through, but then within that, then you realize there's a lot that also the government is doing, non-government organizations, developmental partners, the GIZ, trademark, they are doing a lot of, right now we have actually capacity building that is ongoing. The county governments are doing the CAPs, whereby they are, giving centers for aggregation, so that SMEs are able to also move that ladder to be in the space whereby they can compete. We are talking about the AfCFTA, and the AfCFTA is actually not just about removing tariffs. Yeah. AfCFTA is talking about standards, how you're goods.
Value addition.
Value addition. Can your goods really compete in the African market? We are looking at, we are talking about an SME that is thriving in Kenya, right? But if we open you up into DRC, we open you up into Tanzania, into Uganda, into the whole AfCFTA region, will your products compete? If you are an SME who's maybe doing shampoos or lotions, and you are printing your labels at a cyber, unatumia super glue, and all that, will that compete when a Nigerian is actually using a large format printing and the products, when they're on the shelf, they look more attractive, So the FCFTA is not just even about the tariffs. We are talking about trade finance, access to trade finance itself. We are talking about logistics. We are talking about, it's a whole host of so many things that these SMEs need to understand for them to be able to be competitive.
But if they have to understand all that, what you are saying, who is responsible of making sure that that information is available to SMEs, especially now that we are talking about matters of even value addition to become more competitive?
There's a lot of NGOs that are already actually doing it, like Trademark, Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. We have seen the Ministry of Trade, organizing such events for them to be actually sensitized on what they need to understand. Those conversations are going, but then on a one-on-one basis, then now it moves into now that SME saying, I am really intentional. I want to understand more about this competitiveness. I want to understand more about the FCFTA. Then looking for that particular person who can give you that one-on-one information. That's where consulting firms are basically there. We're able to have those conversations with them, get to understand who they are, what they are doing, what challenges they are facing, and come up with the ideas on how they're able to scale, their businesses and move the ladder.
Very important. And, the biggest challenge is not really about even lack of customers, but or even the rising cost of business. But there are other challenges that you have addressed. But from those challenges, including logistics, what would you say are the challenges that that have the biggest impact on SMEs in making sure that they operate competitively?
I think mostly even understanding capacity, getting to understand who you are, what you're able to produce. Not every SME is ready for the export market. For you to be ready for the export market, two major things really have to happen. Number one, your quality has to be top-notch. Like I said, you're moving from Kenya, representing Kenya, in terms of your products. You're moving into a market that now is going to bring South Africa. It's bringing in Nigeria. It's bringing in Egypt. It's bringing in Ethiopia. And there's a lot that is actually going on in Ethiopia in terms of now growing the SMEs and opening up that space for, foreign direct investment into Ethiopia and all that. We are now moving from just producing, but then we are saying whatever you're producing has to be of high quality. If you're able to assure that you can give us high quality and you can assure us consistency, because you can't just produce a good today. I walk into a shop in Kinshasa, I have very good quality product from Kenya. I buy it today. When I'm coming back next month, it's not available. So you have to assure, if you're able to assure us of quality and consistency, you can actually scale that market.
And even consistency is one aspect of building trust.
Building trust is, and trust me, the whole idea of consistency will actually make you lose a lot of business than anything else you're talking about. Because for me to be able now to stock your products on my shelf, I need to be sure that you will be there again next month. The moment my client, likes your products, then I can't deliver. I'm going to lose their trust. If I'm losing their trust, then I'm going to lose your trust too.
Exactly. And within the whole sphere of high cost of doing business, there's an argument by entrepreneurs that taxation is less of a burden than the complexity of complying with multiple taxes, county levies, and even regulatory requirements. As a country, where should the priority be? Should we prioritize tax simplification before even introducing tax incentives for SMEs?
One thing, the whole conversation about tax is usually a challenging aspect. Governments need tax. That's the only way they will operate. Without taxes, we really don't have a government. Number two, the SMEs need breathing space. You can't overtax them to a level whereby now they're saying we really need to close. The whole idea of taxation, then we are saying, if you really want this to work, instead of taxing more, and you can, if you're looking at the whole idea of tax, look at what happens for the payee. Even forget about the businesses, look at the payee. The payee is, the government knows that you exist,
yes,
and you're working at this particular company, and you are paid this amount of money. It's easy for us to collect money from you, versus the guy who's doing Nachomelea, sometimes they don't even understand where this guy is.
Yes.
So what we are saying, if we are able to broaden that tax base, give incentives for people to come into the tax bracket and say, I really want to, do my fair share. Pay my fair share of taxes, build my own roads by those taxes, and then simplify this idea. And we've seen actually even KRA trying to simplify the tax filing part of it. But the whole idea of what the tax is more difficult than basically just filing. We are saying, how can you understand how much you're supposed to pay? For me to understand, I will need to read the tax code. So that I can understand what qualifies for these exemptions, what qualifies, That now brings me to the idea of, as a regular SME, you are not in that position to actually even read that tax act.
Yes.
So then it means the cost of compliance is going to go high. I'm going to have to get an accountant or a tax consultant to be able to read that code and tell me, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to go about these taxes. So simplifying tax will be the best case, I will say, but also now giving incentives for people to come into the tax bracket will actually assist.
And actually they would be doing that from a point of understanding.
Yeah. Some people actually, they don't even understand, they run away.
Yeah.
We ever had clients who receive a query from KRA, they never read it. They look at it, they're like, oh, this is so scary. And then they look for somebody to come and read and, advise them. Some of them, they wait until the last minute when KRA is saying, hey, we are going to freeze your accounts. If you don't have to talk to us, then they say, at that point, let's look for this particular guy. Then from then on, you can have that conversation. But you see, if it was much easier, and it doesn't look like we are policing you, we are a service provider. You hear KRA saying we want to move it into a service and all that, so that people will easily walk into a KRA office, say, actually, I have this problem, how can we fix it? People will actually come back to the tax bracket.
Very important. And, it's not lost on us that businesses open and close. Every year we have thousands of SMEs registering. From that perspective, does this suggest resilience within the Kenyan entrepreneurial system, or is it a reflection of a cycle where businesses close and others open to replace those that have closed?
For some of those, actually, the same business closes, opens up as a new business, and start something. It happens. But in Kenya, we also say we have a thriving, population, very smart individuals. The new generation guys, they are really super smart.
Yes.
IT or tech savvy. They understand. AI. They can come up with businesses here and there, right? But even with that, we still say some will open businesses or start businesses, and let's also have some that will be building careers. You cannot have everybody coming into the entrepreneurship journey. It's usually a calling. There's so much that goes in terms of entrepreneurship. You are asleep at 2 a.m. Unapigia unaambiwa your truck imefanya accident in Kinshasa. You don't know where to start from. So it's not that everybody has to be in entrepreneurship. Those who are gifted, they can come into entrepreneurship. The rest of us, you can work for those entrepreneurs. At the end of the day, that balance has to be struck. But in terms of what you're saying, we do open a lot of businesses in Kenya. Tunafunga, tunafungua, and all, But the reason why that will be open, look up, JP Morgan. That guy did not close as soon as he came. We have Kenyans who come right now, they open a business.
Yeah.
They expect to start earning in the next 6 months. By 2 years, they are driving Prados and, they don't really trust that process we talk about, right? If it doesn't go as they are looking at, then they are going to close down. But we say, if you're able to keep pushing, hata kama unafanya ni kuchomelea, keep doing what you're doing. Then the first year it may be a little difficult. Keep pushing, continue. But at the end of the day,
that's the nature of business.
Yeah.
You expect returns in the first year.
It will, but we actually microwaved society whereby ukitaka kunywa chai ni maziwa unaga kwa microwave now, within a few minutes umekunywa. But you see, we are forgetting that data bringing is also now coming into how we are running our businesses. So we want the business to start today. We really want to make money at the end of the month. We don't want to go into that process of, you will incur some losses, keep on growing until you break even. We say, normally, it will take you 2 years to break even. If you're looking at breaking even before then you're actually in trouble because it doesn't work that way. So that's why you see somebody anafungua anasema, hii ya car wash I work, let me nifungue chomelea. This one is also not working.
Is it about the perception that this business needs to have done, to have broken even at this time? But then again, we get blind to the opportunities that are there.
But you see, you get blinded by the opportunity because in the first place, did you have a plan for that business? Did you really do a feasibility study, get to understand the challenges that you're going to face, get to know when I will actually break even? So that if I'm going back to my plan, I'm able to say by month 3, I'm looking at being the sole employee, I'm the CEO, I'm the accountant, by month 6, I've brought in 1 extra person, so expenses is going to increase. By year 1, I have 5 employees. I expect to have maybe been making this amount of income. By year 1.5 or something like that, I'm now making I'm breaking even, I'm making my money. Did you really have that plan? Because if you didn't have that plan, then there's going to be a lot of distractions. Utakaa kidogo hivi, somebody says, hapa hivi ni Forex ndio inafanya. So utafunga whatever you are doing, let me run to Forex. You go to Forex, you realize you don't even know anything about Forex. So you have already put your money there, imepotea. Then you're like, no, wacha tuwaje na Forex. Let me try and see if I can do digital marketing. I'm going to go on to TikTok, I just buy a camera. And I go on TikTok. Naingia TikTok I let the camera rafiki zako. Then you're like, now what else? Let me start a consulting firm. I can consult on TikTok and then you realize it's another employment. So it's, if you have a plan, you will actually stay through the course.
You don't have to become a jack of all trades.
You stay through the course. We started in 2016, ups and downs. COVID came, everything went down. Consulting firms, during COVID went down, everything, because nobody's consulting, nobody's paying taxes, nobody's even doing businesses. So you are sitting there, trying to make phone calls. Hey, are we doing the VAT? It's like, I don't even have anything to file. So things went down. Then after that, you start again. As long as you stay on the course, keep pushing. And even actually, even biblically, itafika mahali hata Mungu ako like, this guy has tried. And things are actually open up.
And over the last 3 years, the country has, we've seen elevated interest rates, maybe inflationary pressures, and maybe tighter liquidity. When you look at these things, have the macroeconomic measures stabilized the economy at the expense of SMEs, or are they necessary short-term sacrifices for long-term stability of the economy?
So you're looking at how long is short-term, because the issue of liquidity is not new. It's been there from back then. A regular business. Actually, banks want you to show them that you don't need the money.
Yes.
That they will give you the money. But a regular SME that needs the money, you'll go there, they will actually come and advertise, come, we are giving business loans, we are giving this and that, and you're going to apply. But then you realize that there is a lot of barriers you have to jump, a lot of hoops, to let financial statements, to bring us this and all that. Then you get to a point whereby you realize that sometimes, because I know you've worked with clients who basically were in that space of, you know, seeking financing. They go to one bank or make a short down. Then they come, then we are like, maybe this is not how you needed to present yourself, right? If you're able to present yourself in a bankable way that banks will look at your statement, they look, because banks will ask you, you have a bank statement for the last 2 years, 3 years or something like that. Probably you don't even have your financial statements. Probably you have them, they're not audited, you know, all the. If you're able to show the case, prove your case, the case is, I am an SME, I want to grow, and this is my challenge, this is what I'm looking at to be in the next 2 years if I have this financing. You know, it's much easier for that to happen. But then you realize also, the government is also borrowing. And the government is going for easy money, which is banks. Then once the banks are seeing the government is coming, they are sure this guy is not going to default, right? So they're going to give it to the government. Whatever is left is what comes now to the SMEs and, you know, to us regular businesses. They will also now start from the enterprises. We are looking at, you know, can I give Bitco? You know, because I know Bitco, Kichukwa, they will pay. But an SME who's down there, I do not even understand their business. I do not know what they have done. They don't even have financial statements. Really, I'm not going to give them money. So there is that aspect. Then there is also the aspect of that credit being available, but too expensive. I've seen microfinance institutions charging 20–30% per month, right? Even if, I don't know what type of business you're running, to be able to actually afford to pay 30% on a monthly basis and still run your own business. You know, even if you go to banks, they're maybe giving you 18–24%. That is still 3 times what you can actually get if you go in the US. In the US, you can actually walk into a bank right now. You do that application. You don't even need to walk in the bank. Digitally, you can actually do online. You request a loan, take a $10,000. You request Apple. Within two hours, they're like, hey, I think you qualify for this amount. You know, sign this document and send us back, and you receive the money within that 1 day. Here, it's back and forth. You know, go here, end up kwa yule jama, you know, go talk to this guy, and sometimes you'll never even get it. So there's the issue of liquidity now, whereby we don't even have the money to give you. There's the issue of now the cost of that capital that is being too high, which now also now factors into the profitability of that particular business.
Which actually, the issue about banks, commercial banks, the argument usually is that SME lending is risky due to poor record keeping and even limited collateral. So while these businesses insist on affordable credit, there's still some level of inaccessibility. So where does the responsibility, the greater responsibility lie? Is it the financial sector or the SMEs themselves?
For an SME who's coming in to look for trade finance, the issue of collateral should actually not be coming up. The banks should understand the nature of businesses. I'm doing import business, I'm importing steel from China, right? You do not expect me to have collateral worth $1 million, for example. It's not feasible. But how about you think about, I have that commodity that's coming from China, from a particular company in China. Can we have, you know, maybe an arrangement that we can have a conversation with that particular company that is shipping, so that we can have access or get to understand when these products are moving. They come and land at the port in Mombasa in our warehouse, maybe a bonded warehouse, whereby we can say we have control of this product, right? So we have given you $1 million, right? But then for you to be able to sell these products, we still must be part of the ownership of that product, such that I'm not now looking for collateral. Where are you going to get collateral worth $1 million, right? But then if you have access to that particular product, then now you can now talk about how can we finance this. So banks also need to understand that there is a personal loan, and then there is a business loan, and then we have trade finance. Trade finance must understand the journey of every trade. If I'm doing export business, nauza chai or something like that, you know, it's not happening today. You can't give me a loan and expect me to pay next month.
Yeah.
Probably hata haijatoka kwa auction, right? But if I'm selling regular products kwa supermarket, then you expect them to, the movement is different. So banks should understand each business, get to treat them according to what that business looks like. Yeah.
Let's get into the opportunity or challenge that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement presents.
Yeah.
You know, access of 1.4 billion people with a combined GDP of around exceeding 3 trillion USDs. So are there practical opportunities that it presents, especially to Kenyan SMEs, that currently they can explore?
One thing I can say, that the Africa Continental Free Trade is something that is so dear to what we do, and it's something that we look at a lot.
Yes.
FCFTA, where we are right now, is not like EAC, it's not like SADC, it's not like ECOWAS that have been there for a long time.
Yeah.
We are talking about a journey. The FCFTA right now is actually a journey, it's not an event. It's not something that, you know, it's working, that's worked and all that. We can't even judge and say the FCFTA has worked, it has failed, and, you know, it's still too early, right? FCFTA, we talk about a market of 1.4 billion. You know, that's what we are saying is an opportunity.
Yeah.
But then we forget one thing. It's a population of 1.4 billion. Do we really have that market? You know, look at what China is doing. China is in Kenya, is in Zambia, is in everywhere. Do we Africans really own that 1.4 billion? Most of that market is owned by China. Most of that market could be owned by the EU. Most of that market could be owned by the US, sometimes producing the same products that we're able to produce here in Kenya or here in Africa. So talking about the 1.4 billion opportunity is completely different from 1.4 billion market that we own. So we have the population, but we don't own that market. Now, that's not a problem. It's because FCFTA is still new. Right now, 54 countries have already ratified. It's only Eritrea that hasn't. The AU considered Sahrawi as one of countries, basically, you know. So 54 have already ratified. Only 25 have gazetted. So you cannot use the rules of origin for the FCFTA for a country that has not gazetted. You know? Yeah. So if those countries have not gazetted, then that means we cannot really use the FCFTA into those particular countries. The beauty is most of the East African countries have already ratified. But then now we are saying if we're in East Africa, we really need the EAC.
Yes.
Now, for us to now move into the ECOWAS region, into SADC region, into all those other regions, then now we need the FCFTA. This FCFTA, at the moment, there is progress that has been made.
Yes.
The ratification by the 25 countries, obviously having it ratified, that's progress. We have seen a lot of progress in terms of trade finance, because that's part of what the FCFTA is actually after. We have seen a lot of progress in terms of logistics, but then there are still non-tariff barriers that are basically affecting the FCFTA.
Yeah.
You know, those are the challenges that we still have to. At the moment, FCFTA is at that level whereby we celebrate a shipment going through, you know, using the FCFTA. You know, so that tells you that we still have a long way to go. Nobody's celebrating that we have shipped 20 containers to Tanzania under the EAC.
Which now begs the question, as a continent, have we underestimated the challenge of removing these invisible trade barriers?
You know, at the end of the day, you realize that, you know, FCFTA says you are going to give us preferential trade for these products, or you can even give us zero rate in terms of tariffs. But you still get to DRC, they are like, yeah, we know the FCFTA, but you really need to talk to us. You know, if you go to DRC, you realize that maybe the government may not be, you know, that guy who can assist you. There are some guys at the border who say, you need to talk to us. Yes, we know you have everything that is working, but then you need to talk to us. Yes. So there is all those, even right now, we have a lot of seminars and conferences. They are talking about how can we eliminate non-tariff barriers. And it's still a challenge because you want to get your free access, but then we still need to get those tariffs. You need to collect some taxes here, there, levies and all that stuff. So there is those challenges. There are a lot of challenges that are already ongoing, but I've seen even the AFCFTA SG, talking about all this, going to different countries, trying to see how can we reduce these NTBs so that we're able to have that free movement of goods. If you're able to have that free movement of goods, trust me, we can do a lot of things here in Africa. But until we are able to take care of those non-tariff barriers, until we're able to take care of logistics, I mean, if you're moving products from Kenya into Kinshasa, it's not going by road. You are going to have to go by ship, because ukifika DRC, Congo Forest,
yes,
Aupiti, it has to go by ship. So you can imagine how much money is going through that. We are talking about even understanding standardization. Not every product that you produce will actually pass the test to go to a particular other country. Some of the SMEs we are talking about, they do not even have standard, even KEBs. Zengine hataona KEBs. Some of them don't even understand the export market. They don't understand what documentation you need for you to be able to get into the export market. So the non-tariff barriers is a big issue, but there's so many other challenges that need to be worked on. And as time goes by, we are going to embrace it.
Because that's true, because some, you speak to some economists or even experts, they argue that AFCFTA could expose some SMEs to undue competition before they are ready. But then again, as a country, should we first strengthen our SMEs, our domestic competitiveness, before even venturing into now areas like AFCFTA?
I feel right now there's a lot of conversation around protecting, our local manufacturing. There's conversation about improving competitiveness. That's why we have a lot of capacity building ongoing. GIZ is doing capacity building. Trademark is doing capacity building. KNCCI, KEPSA, all these, they're doing capacity building for them to be competitive in terms of export market. Now, the protectionism is something that can be looked upon for only strategic kind of interests. You really don't want to protect a company producing lotion, company producing tea, It has to be something strategic. But then at the end of it all, then you're looking at how can we make this competitive. If you are looking at protecting them, they will never be competitive, because they are not getting any competition from anybody outside. Let them go out there and compete with the Nigerians.
And that competition will bring about innovation.
It will bring about innovation, actually, yeah, because when you realize the competition is too high, Nigerians are doing this particular products in this particular way, I need to find a way that I can also compete. Let them compete with everybody out, unless it's something so strategic. The minerals, such type of, you can actually do the protectionism. But then, for regular production, let the people go out there.
Let's close with this. What do you see as the future of SMEs in terms of becoming competitive at the continental and global level?
Look at it this way. Participating in the international or continental trade is more not just about geography. There is a huge market space and all that, but it's more about competitiveness. For you to be able to compete, like I said, you need a lot of capacity building. We need a lot of incubators. We need a lot of CAPs to continue in terms of county export, growth. We need to have counties go beyond just having a minister or a minister of trade, but to somebody who will actually prioritize every business in that particular country, do a mapping, say we have for example, in Nyandarua, we are good in milk production. See how we can now move that from just Nyandarua, move it into the whole country, move it into outside the country, figure out what product moves in that in the export market. We may be trying to sell milk, but then you move into the export market, you realize they don't even need like regular milk. They are looking for milk powder. So we are trying to sell milk in terms of packets, but they don't want that. They are looking for milk powder. So we have to understand what is moving and figure out how can we now factor in on the industry that we have here and make them more competitive. If you want to move, maybe you want to sell products in Nigeria. What sells in Nigeria? Don't just take anything. What sells in DRC? You know, in Kenya here we are eating a lot of mahindi, ugali. You know, when you go to DRC, for them they're looking for rice mostly. You know, you realize actually the conversation we were also having with one of my bosses at some point. They went to DRC and they were looking at taking unga, they are taking the regular stuff, juice and all that stuff. Yes. They get to DRC, they realize these guys are in wako kitambo, wako 1980s of Kenya. They're looking for matchboxes, candles, you know, this regular other stuff. Then they changed the whole idea because they were going with a different perspective, but then they realized that kwa ground ni tofauti. So if you're moving into DRC, figure out what do they want in DRC. Yes. Come here, develop capacity around that, sell it to DRC. If you're moving into South Sudan, go to South Sudan. What is actually moving in South Sudan? Come here, figure out which industry is actually playing around that area, develop capacity, move it into that particular area. You know? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing insights, especially when it comes to matters of SMEs and how they can become competitive at the continental and global level.
Thank you.
That is Cyprian Ongeri, who is the lead consultant at GFC Africa. This conversation ends right now. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Migwi. Vivian Ndegwa is up next with Women at the Forefront. Stay with us.